So in reading Mountains Beyond Mountains, I found it interesting from 2 points of view. One, obviously, is Paul Farmer's quest, his drive, his incredible dedication to combat infectious disease. In reading the book, I think that it was really very compelling to me because it's very easy for me to get lost in my lab working on my bug and my particular experiment du jour, working with my student or who, the postdoc, whoever's working in the lab, and listening to their results. And we get so caught up in the science of the day that it's always important to remember that at some point it's going to leave the lab, and you do have the opportunity to make a difference on a much larger scale. Specifically, I work on a microbe called Streptomyces. And if you take all the different species of Streptomyces and add them together, about 2/3 of all our antibiotics that are used in veterinary and human medicine are produced by this microbe. I had an incredibly different perspective, I think, from most other people because I was really looking at it from the point of view of the sort of the human face behind all these antibiotics that I know, where they come from, how we make them, and our quest to find new antibiotics. I was particularly interested in the part when Jim goes to Peru and starts working with the multiply drug-resistant strains of TB, the MDR-TB. These MDR-TB, the types that he was working with, are actually called XMDR-TB for extremely multiple drug-resistant TB, because he was having to use what they call, if you remember, the second-line drugs. So these are not the drugs that we use to treat normal TB. These are more expensive drugs. And what I think everybody should be aware of, but wasn't necessarily brought forth in the book, is that what's happening in our world today is that the numbers of XMDR-TB cases continues to climb while the number of drugs that we have to treat XMDR-TB continues to dwindle. Now, as we know, in the developed world, XMDR-TB hasn't become an issue. But for instance, in South Africa several years ago, there was a huge outbreak of XMDR-TB. South Africa is especially vulnerable to this type of TB because so many of their people also have AIDS. The thing that is important about Farmer and Jim Kim's work is that they're really advancing public health. Initially, that the type of policy that was being advocated by the WHO before they came in, to me, was not public health, it was public death. We are not going to treat XMDR-TB patients because we can't. And, from a moral point of view, that's just, reprehensible. But from a community health point of view, it's just plain stupid because it's just going to spread and become a bigger problem. I think I can look back on my own experience and just relay something that happened to me when I was in graduate school 20-some years ago, and I really thought that I wanted to pursue infectious disease, and I wanted to go this way. And I was told by any number of people in graduate school and even amongst my undergraduate advisors that infectious disease was no longer an issue. Now, as it happened for me, I didn't do my graduate work in infectious disease, but when I finished my graduate work, I sort of did a U-turn and went back and got involved in it. When you're reading this book or any book, if you find the spark that really catches your interest, go with it. That's what you should follow. Finding the spark is so hard that when you do find it, don't ignore it. That's what you need to chase.